All right, guys. Okay, so yeah, what Wes said, go ahead and write down any questions on each side. If it's something you don't want to bring up in front of the group, go ahead and write them. Also, go ahead and write down one thing you really want to get out of this class. I want to make sure everybody gets all their questions answered. If anything is something that I don't cover, at the end, I'll go through those to make sure we get through everything, okay? I'm going to try to hit everything from the time you get your information, whether that's in a software or if it's emailed to you or texted to you, whatever way you get your customer's information, from that point all the way to debriefing the call, everything in between, I'm going to try to hit, but I might miss something. So I want to help you out. All right. One thing I didn't bring up with the why statement is tying it back. So let's say you get to the house and you're like, let's say your why is you hate crappy electrical work. Like, that's your why. Now, when you're standing in front of an outlet pulled out of the wall and you're explaining what's going on with it, you can tie it back and be like, Mrs. Jones, this is exactly what I was talking about. Remember earlier when I said my why is to make sure to stop bad or poor or dangerous electrical work? This is the type of work I'm talking about. So you can use your why later on in the call and tie it back if it's relevant to what your why is. It's always, you're going to hear me talk about tying things back a lot. Have anybody been to a comedy show before? One of the biggest things in comedies, they say, is tying it back. So you'll say, you ever have it where they tell a really funny story, and then all the way at the end of the show, they make a joke about that first story that kind of had nothing to do with the beginning? They're tying it back, and they say that's actually the most powerful thing in a comedy show is that. And it's the same thing with us. If you tell them your why statement right when you get there and you've never even looked at the electrical work, and then you're standing in front of crappy electrical work, and you're tying it back, it's going to be extremely powerful to the homeowner. You're going to look like a damn psychic almost, right? Okay. All right, so the number one thing I can teach you is your why. That everything else, I'm not telling you to shut off after this, but everything else after this is not as important. Do your why. And what's on the other side of uncomfortable? So we got to be uncomfortable. And it's only uncomfortable until it becomes not uncomfortable. So do that. All right. The next thing, the second best thing I can teach you is disc profiling. In your books on page 6, you'll see your disc profile test. Now, there's no wrong answers on this test, so don't worry about passing it or failing it. But you'll have block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4. There's 10 blocks. I want you to rank yourself 1 through 4. 4 is most like you, and 1 is least like you. So let's go to block 1. It's enthusiastic, bold, conscientious, and friendly. If friendly was the one that I think is the most like me, I would have put a 4 on that one. And then if I thought bold was the next, I'd put a 3 on that one. Okay? So do that for every block. 4 is the most like you, 1's the least like you. Do that for every block. No dumb questions. I'm not going to define anything because it might throw it off. If you need to Google the word if you don't know what it is. The biggest thing, though, is don't overthink it. If you overthink it, you'll actually throw the test off. Just go with your gut. Okay, how we doing? All right. So now that you ranked yourself in your ranking, now I'm going to give you the disc codes for each one. So you're going to have to pay attention I'm going to go from top down. So I'm going to start with block 1 over in the disk section. Top to bottom, write I, D, C, S. So I, D, C, S on block 1. Again, block 1 is I, D, C, S. All right, block 2, which is the block below 1, not next to it. The one below it is block 2. That is C, I, S, D. Again, it's C, I, S, D. Block 3, which is below block 2. S, I, D, C. Again, block 3 is S, I, D, C. Block 4, D, C, S, I. Again, block 4, D, C, S, I. Block 5, S, C, I, D. Again, block 5, S, C, I, D. Block 6, up at the top right, block 6, D, S, I, C. Again, it's D, S, I, C. Block 7, I, D, C, S. I, D, C, S. Block 8 is C, I, S, D. Again, block 8, C, I, S, D. Block 9, I, S, D, C. Again, block 9, I, S, D, C. And the last one, block 10, D, I, C, S. D, I, C, S. Does everybody have all those? Okay. Now, I want you to add up all your D's and write it under D. Add up the number. So if you add up your 4s, your 3s, your 2s, your 1s, and D's, I's, S's, and C's on the bottom. All right, looks like most people got them all added up. All right, I guess I didn't really explain disk profiling before we started this. I probably should have. That would make sense. All right, so disk profiling is a way to categorize your customers in 4 different groups. Think of it as speaking 4 different languages. If you go to a customer's home and they speak Spanish and you don't, it's going to be very difficult to sell, right? So we want to talk in the language the customer speaks. We all have a different way of thinking in our minds, right? So it kind of goes back to if I had $20 million, I wouldn't buy a Ferrari. I'm not a car guy. That's not what I would buy with it. But there are a lot of people who would buy a Ferrari. We speak in different languages. That's not what I would buy, but that's what they would buy. Okay, so we want to talk to the customer in their language. And this is how we figure out what language. First, we're trying to figure out what language we speak, because we may not even know. And then we're going to find out, I'm going to give you ways to figure out what kind of language your customer speaks in. All right? If you get really good at this, it's almost not fair. It's almost not fair. Because you can talk to your customer, you can directly to the part of the brain that buys with that customer if you get really good at this. All right? So, so you have D's, I's, S's, and C's. Okay, so, yeah, question? You're 3 out of the 4? You don't have a higher one? Okay, so you're just kind of there's people who are kind of across the board. They're not extreme in one way or another. In a way, that's really good though, because you probably are a really good chameleon with your customers and can adjust to their level pretty quickly because you have all those traits. So you kind of speak all 4 languages almost equally. Okay, so raise your hand if your highest number is a D. That's about normal. Okay. Raise your hand if your highest is an I. Okay. Raise your hand if your highest is an S. Notice all the hands that went up. Raise your hand if your highest is a C. And in a room full of electricians, that's about normal. Actually, it's probably a little low even. Okay. It's funny. I already knew S was going to be the most. How would I know that? Statistically the highest. 68% of people are S's. 68%. So if you're going to get good at one, which one should you get good at? An S. All right? So I'm going to kind of break this out. D's are like your lions. They're usually very bold. They're usually not very patient. Time is extremely important to a D. That's the D's trigger, is time. Time is everything to a D. I'll just kind of go through some of these. These are generally your very talkative people. They like to tell a lot of stories. These are the customers, you go to their houses and they don't shut up, they're an I. All right? They usually like to laugh. They like to joke. Everything's fun to them. All right? An S, they are your beavers. Don't get cute with that. They protect their pack, their family. They build huts like a beaver does to protect. They care about other people more than themselves. S's care about other people more than themselves. And then C is your ant. They're very systematic. You might call them a little nerdy. They love data. They love numbers, statistics. They're very data and information driven. So when you put people in these categories, it helps talk to them. I'm going to give you ways to figure out what your customer is and how to talk to the customers when you're another letter, okay? So the biggest thing with lions is time. Time is everything for these people. If I'm going to try to sell something to a D, I'm going to talk about time. Have you ever pulled out your straightforward price book and tried to explain the 10 levels and the customer's like, yeah, I don't want to hear all that. I just want you to go fix whatever it is? That's probably a D. They don't want to waste their time listening to your spiel. However, if you know they're a D, before you present that, say, Mr. Jones, to help save time, I'm going to explain how our prices work. Boom, they will listen now because you said it will save them time. That's just an example. Fun. Fun is your I's. Everything has to revolve around fun with an I. If it's not fun, they want nothing to do with it. All right? So, Mr. Jones, I have this really cool and fun price book. Now you got their attention. Now they'll listen. It's fun. You said the F word, the one they like. All right? And S is others. Other people are more important, like I said. Mrs. Jones, this way, I'm going to go through my straightforward pricing book. This will allow you to know the price down to the penny so you and your family's budget doesn't get exceeded. Something like that. Talk about others. All right? They don't care about themselves. They care about others. And then a C is, again, data-driven. So, well, that's really bad. I have bad handwriting. That's even bad for me. All right? So that might be, another one is with a C is no surprises. I probably spelled that wrong, but that's all right. No surprise. C's hate surprises. Hate them. Who's a C? Raise your hand if you're a C again. Do you guys like surprises? No. Hate them. So you can say, here's our straightforward pricing guide. This way you'll know the price down to the penny before I start anything, so you're not surprised at the price later. Now you got that person's mind in the game. Okay? So these are their triggers: time, fun, others, either data or no surprises, depending on where you're in. That's what's important to these people. So if we're talking to them about their triggers, they're probably going to help buy from us. So I use wiring a hot tub as an example. So people might be like, I give a price to wire a hot tub. They say, no, thank you. And I'll say, Mr. Jones, but do you really want to spend the time, if I'm dealing with a D, do you really want to spend the time getting other people to come out here, price this thing, or you just want to save time and have me get this thing taken care of? And usually they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that sounds just absolutely horrible to a D. Scheduling things, meeting with more people, that's just a nightmare. They don't want to do that. So hopefully they'll go with you. Or an I. It's odd an I doesn't buy, but let's say they do. Let's say they say no for whatever reason. You can say, but, I don't have to do it today if you need to think about it, but, wouldn't you like to have a lot of fun getting in your hot tub? When your kids get home from school or whatever, you won't be able to have any fun if you don't get it wired today. That's going to be their trigger. I want to have fun. All right? Or others. If I'm talking to an S, if you need to think about the price, I totally understand. I know you said your kids are going to come home from school and they want to play in the hot tub, and they're not going to be able to if we don't wire it today. That's others. It's going to hit them right here. You're going to be like, I can't do that. I'm worried about others. Or C, maybe building some urgency. We don't have to wire it today, but I just don't want you to be surprised calling our company if we can't get you in for 2 to 3 weeks. We're really busy right now. So if you call us, you might be surprised that we won't get out here. Oh, geez. I don't want to be surprised. Right? So that's an example of how I would close the different people. I don't use the same closing tactics on everybody. I'm using my DISC profile. All right, the easiest way to figure out your customer is to first find out what they are not. You can rule people out pretty dang quick. If I come into a house and a person's very, very quiet, what do I know they're probably, and aren't talkative, what do I probably already know they're not? They're not an I. I got rid of one. All right? If they talk, if they look at me straight in the eyes and they're really bold, what else do I know they're not? Yes. They're not an S. So now I got rid of 2. Well, now I'm down to D and a C. And the good news is you'll figure out pretty quick between a D and a C what they are, all right? So it's best to figure out what they're not when you get to the house. And you can figure this out pretty quick when you walk in the front door. If you're going to do some rapport building, you can usually figure it out pretty quick. D's are very easy to spot. I's are very easy to spot. Your S's and C's, because they're quieter people generally, are a little harder to figure out which one they are because they don't talk a lot, and so it's hard to get more out of them. All right? Okay, so if you're a D, raise your hand if you're a D again. Okay, so we got a few D's in the house. By the way, I'm a DC. A DC is the oddest profile of all of them. I'm the odd one. The oddest one. All right? So when I say I understand how D's think, I know because I are one, and I understand a little bit how C's think. So when a D talks to an I, you're going to, because time is very important to you D's, you're not going to want to sit there and have a lot of fun with the customer. Right? See, my D's are laughing because they're like, yeah, I hate that shit. But you have to. All right? You have to. You got to have fun with these people. You have to listen to their stupid story, even though you don't want to listen to it. You just want to go to work. I know. I get it. But the I wants to tell you their story of everything that happened leading up to this point in their entire life. Right? And you're going to have to laugh. You're going to have to laugh a little bit. All right? I forgot. A D to a D. I didn't talk about that. A D to a D usually doesn't have too many issues because you're both on the same page. You just want to get shit done. Yep. Like, that's usually not too big of an issue, a D to a D. Yep.
And a lot of times, the dispatcher will give you like an overview of the customer before you get there.
That's great if they do.
So sometimes they'll call or they'll, give you the job and so forth. They'll talk to you and say, hey, Mr. Jones is, real talkative, this and the third. By the time you get there, it's probably the same thing, versus from the conversation from the dispatcher.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's great. If you get that heads up, you got a good dispatcher. If you get that heads up, that's awesome. The other thing I was going to bring up too is your spouse, most people's spouses are opposite of what they are. You maybe have even already thought of this doing your DISC profile. If you think about your spouse, they're probably opposite. Which means when you get to a house and you have both spouses there, they're probably opposite. So you got to hit everything. But when you can talk to the wife one way and you can talk to the husband the other or whatever, vice versa, you can talk to them in their language if you know how to read them. So a D to the D, not a problem. A D to an I, you got to have fun with them, even though you don't want to. A D to an S, you got to bring your boldness down a little bit. Lower your voice a little bit. Don't be so pushy. Slow down.
Step back.
Yep, step back. An S doesn't like aggressive people generally. They don't like loud people generally. So you got to slow down. You can see I am bold and I'm loud. When I'm with an S, I slow down. I talk a little softer, a little quieter. I explain things a little slower, not because they're stupid or anything like that. It's just the fact that that's the way they like to be talked to. And when they talk to their friends, that's how they talk. A D to a C, again, you're going to have to slow down and you're going to have to give the facts. And you're going to have to give third-party a third-party verification on things. To a D, this is stupid. Like, why do I have to give them a sheet that says that, arc fault breakers protect 98% of all circuits that are on those circuits? Why do I have to give them that sheet from the National Fire Protection Agency? This is stupid. This is a waste of time. That's how a C buys, though. A C buys off third party. They need proof. C's are skeptical of everything, including you. So we have to give them that. Even though as a D, we're going to think it's a waste of time to do that, and it's stupid. It's not to a C.
Sometimes you feel like it is, and once you start to feel like that, that's when your call is going to go to shit.
Yep, right. Yep, you're just talking to that language. That's what you're talking to. Okay, an I. If you're an I and you're talking to a D, you got to cut the stories down, all right? He or she is not going to want to have fun, all right? So you're going to want to explain your price book really long and detailed, and your why statement's going to be 13 times longer than it needs to, and all these things. You got to shorten it. Short, sweet, to the point. Don't skip anything. Just short, sweet, and to the point. When you're an I, you're going to want to talk a lot. The D doesn't have time for that crap. They don't want to do that. They want the information quick, fast, and let's move. An I to an I. This is a long conversation. Okay. Well, they do. So eyes do talk to eyes. The problem is they try to freaking outdo each other. So what happens if you're the technician eye and you're talking to an eye, you can't outdo the customer's story. Because this is what eyes do. Hey, this happened to me too. Oh, I had the same thing happen to me over here and my story's cooler. Yeah, but then I had, and it's this battle of who has the better story, the funnier story, the most amazing story. You don't want to do that to your customer, right? If their customer's an eye, they want to have the coolest story or the most amazing experience or whatever they're talking about. Let them have their glory. All right? So if you're an eye, you're going to have to shut your mouth, laugh, have fun, just don't outdo their story. All right? Now, later on in the call, and you guys are yapping and talking and having a great time, then you guys can do your stories. But at the beginning, don't try to outdo each other, okay? If you're an I talking to an S, same thing, slow it down. Because eyes are usually very animated. They talk very, very fast. They're laughing. They're chasing squirrels around the yard. Right? Slow it down. Slow it down. All right? Eyes and C's don't get along very well. So you got to be, if you're an I talking to a C, take the exaggeration down, because eyes love to exaggerate. They'll say something along the lines of, Mr. Jones, everybody buys our club membership. It's the greatest deal on the earth. That's how eyes talk. And in a C's mind, they're like, not everybody buys your club membership. I know that because if they're already a club, they're not going to buy it again. You just lied to me. I don't trust you. I'm serious. That's how they think. And you're just like, no, I'm just exaggerating. C's don't exaggerate. All right? Or they might be like, yeah, like I said, it's the best deal on earth. And they're like, no, it's not. It's not the best deal on earth. You're lying to me and you're annoying. I'm serious. This is how C's think. You're not talking their language. So if you're an I talking to a C, take the exaggeration down. You got to take whatever seriousness inside of you and bring it out. Joking, laughing around, they're not going to want to do that, more than likely. Probably not going to happen. All right? Okay, then we have our S. S talking to a D usually also doesn't go well, because S's are usually more reserved. They have a hard time talking to very bold and pushy customers. I'm sure you S's all have a story that's literally broken your heart talking to a D because they hurt your feelings, didn't they? Right? And so what you need to do is, as hard as it is for you S's, when you're dealing with a D, you got to look him in the eye. And I know that's going to kill you inside. But just look him in the eye and be as bold as you possibly can be as an S. And a D wants to be, they want confidence. And they want speed and confidence. If you're staring at the ground because you're intimidated by them and you're like, yeah, we can do this price here and we can probably get it done and this, and the D's going to be like, come on, man, like I don't have time for this stuff. But if you look at them and be like, I'll get it done, I'll take care of it, and you look in their eye, they're going to like that, they're going to appreciate it, and you can move on. Try not to be as intimidating as you can with a D if you're an S. And I know it's hard because some of us D's are actual D's, right? Like I get it. I get it. But most D's I know are good people. They're not, there's bad ones of every ones of these, right? But just know that they're probably not going to be as mean as they come off, especially if you look them in the eye and you're confident. Because most D's are fairly confident people. All right. So and then an S to an I. You guys usually get along pretty good. You're going to have to get more fun, S's. You're going to have to get a little fun, smile, laugh a little bit with your I. Otherwise, if you don't get fun, we're not talking to them. An S to an S, usually no problems whatsoever. You S's get along wonderfully. An S to a C, pretty good. You actually get along pretty good too. Just make sure, again, we're using third-party things. A C generally will say no, and they'll give you the real reason, not a smokescreen answer. And that might make you feel bad as an S. Don't take it personally. It's just factual with a C. I like D's and C's because they'll actually frickin' tell you why they're not buying today. They're the ones who'll be like, your prices are ridiculous, get the hell out of the house. Right? But an S, you S's, well, I love you. You're the most smokescreen people in this frickin' world. And you'll take anything not to say no, because you're going to hurt my feelings. So you say things like, I'll have to talk to my spouse. Even if you're not married, just make it up, just so you don't have to say no. You'll say, I have to think about it. No, you don't. You just don't want to say no. Those are the two big ones. I got to think about it. I got to talk to my spouse. Because they can't say no. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So that's why I love D's and C's. Okay, if you're a C technician talking to a D, again, look them in the eyes. Confidence. C's and D's get along fairly well. If you're a C talking to an I, again, you got to have a little fun. I know C's don't like to have a lot of fun. I know, but you got to just try. All right, just smile a little bit, give them a little something, smile. C talking to an S, again, not too big of a deal. Just you're going to stay factual because you're a C, and an S can usually take that very well. Oh, another thing, if you're an I as a technician, I know you I's hate rejection. You hate it. It hurts. And I think it actually hurts more than an S. And why do you think that is? Yes. They don't like you. But here's the thing. Everybody likes me if I'm an I. I's have millions of friends. They do. They have friends, and everybody wants to hang out with them and talk to them, and they have all this stuff. So when somebody says no and rejects them, it literally kills their flow, their whatever you want to call it, their confidence. So, yep, your I's need a lot of pep. To owners and managers in the back, if you got technicians that are I's, they need pep talks. If a customer kills their flow, you got to build them back up. You got to build them back up because they're very worried about people not liking them because their whole life everybody likes them. Why doesn't this person? Right? Because my wife is opposite. My wife is an I. And she'll literally be like, if somebody's rude to her, it'll ruin her entire day. I mean, she'll just be like, I just can't believe why that guy talked to me. Like, why doesn't he like me? What did I do wrong? I'm like oh, Heather, don't worry about it. Who cares? He's a stranger. Piss off. But I'm a D. I don't care. Right? Okay, so does that kind of help a little bit? I was going to bring up something too. Another way you can pick out these people is their occupation. Maybe you don't know, you can't quite pinpoint who they are or what they are, but if you know their occupation, that could help too. What do you think a D? What do you think are some occupations of a D? Companies, CEOs, attorneys, yep, things like that. Look, you guys are getting this down already. Good job. I's, what kind of jobs do you think an I have? Sales. What else? Maybe teachers, but hospitality, bartenders, waitresses, party planners, wedding planners, things like that. DJs, yep, things like that. What kind of jobs do you think S's have? What's that? Nurses, doctors, a lot of administrative work because they really don't like to talk to people that much either. Teachers, yep, those types of things. And then a C, what kind of people are C's? Engineers, attorneys, accountants, scientists, those kind of people. All right? So you guys are getting this down pretty good. That's great. I'll tell you, the first couple times I was taught DISC profile training, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about after the class. You guys are getting it down pretty damn good. An S is ready spot. When you walk up to a house and they're like, oh, come on in from the cold. Can I get you something to drink, something to eat? Those are almost always an S. Almost always an S. Because again, they care about other people more than themselves. They care about you more than themselves. All right? If you walk in the house and the guy is telling a lot of stories and he's happy and he's talkative, probably an I. We can figure this out pretty dang quick when we get into the house. And we just have to get them in 4 categories, and then we know their triggers. Time, fun, others, data, or no surprises. All right, I thought there was something else I was going to go through. Remember, S's are 68% for those people, so get good at your S's. Also, this can help you in other spots of your life than just work. This can help you with your spouses. You can literally cross out your answers on that sheet and have them take the test, bring that home, and cross out all your letters and have them fill it in, and you could actually give them that same test. Because sometimes, as you know, people in relationships, we have to sell ideas to our spouses. This can help you with that. John.
How do you handle a customer who has a Zoom call in 10 minutes after you get there?
That's a great question. So I always say nobody wins by rushing a call. Nobody wins. The customer doesn't win, you don't win, the company doesn't win. Nobody wins. So I always try to either tell them, well, if you only have 10 minutes, there's no way I'm going to be able to either figure out how you want your X, Y, or Z done, or for me to diagnose your problem in 10 minutes. So would you like to reschedule this call? I could come back another time when you have more time, and either 2 things are going to happen. They're either going to reschedule the call, but usually what happens is they magically come up with more time to be with you. So that's what I would try to do. And if they say they have a Zoom call, be like, well, I'm going to need to talk to you. I'm going to need to show you things. I'm going to have to interrupt. So would you like to reschedule this service call, or would you like to reschedule your Zoom meeting? And again, I know that's an uncomfortable conversation, but what's on the other side of uncomfortable is success. I'm telling you, if you only got 10 minutes to explain your price book, and then you're going to come back and you can't sell a diagnostic because now they're on their Zoom call, what are you going to do? There's only a few things you're going to do. Either one, you're just going to fix the damn problem without selling a diagnostic, shame on you. Or you're going to tell them how much it was after and the customer might get mad, shame on you. Or you're going to interrupt them and they're not going to be happy with you. Nobody wins. So you got to have the uncomfortable conversation up front of how this is going to work.
Would that be a good time to hit them with their why and be like, I understand what you're doing, but in order for me to feel comfortable doing what I have to do to make sure you're good, it's just simply not enough time?
Yeah, sure, because it's true. Like, they need time. You need time with the customer to do what we do. So,
Or setting up the follow-up appointment.
yeah, and just be like, hey, I can come back another time, if you'd like. But we got to have time with the customer. Nobody wins by rushing a call. In fact, and again, I've done it. I've rushed calls, and usually either they won't make a decision, or if they do, they are not happy with the decision because they were rushed to make the decision, and then it's a complaint call, or they didn't understand the value. Like it's just nobody wins. That's
So it's like the dispatch fee, where it's like, say we reschedule, we'll get out there.
yeah. I mean, I'd probably collect a dispatch. I mean, I would talk to your owners and managers of what they want you to do in those scenarios. But at my company, we would probably collect the dispatch fee. We'd set up another appointment. We wouldn't charge another dispatch fee. We would just come out another time. Because now I want to collect the dispatch fee because I want to come back to the home, and now they think they already paid for it, instead of them hiring another company to come out another time. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else I didn't go over with disc profiling? I think that's it for now. I'll probably think of something. We'll take a little break. 10 minutes again, I think. We'll do 10 minutes.